Is this Mike you fucking on? Piece of shit.
Hello, I'm Stu Rolls and welcome back to the next woeful instalment of the Back in the Band podcast. The show where we remember a simpler time in our lives when music and being in a band back in our youth meant you could actually dream of one day living the life of a rock and roll star. For today's episode, we'll be looking back on making friends for life, freezing your nuts off in the back of a van, and mums bringing pizza to recordings done in a front room. Before we do though, time to bring in today's co-host for the day. A man who, if he shaved his head any closer to the bone, I'll be using it as a cue ball for my pool table. It's Dan Short. Hello, Dan. Always a pleasure to have you on the pod, mate. Welcome back.
I'm hoping in one of these episodes I'll be able to introduce you and your kind of general vibe, because I don't know how many people have seen you. So for the people listening to this, when I met Stu initially, he had these fantastic frosted tips, which are kind of nature's way of saying I'm cool on the outside, but 90s at heart. My guy here still has... he still has hair like a dessert topping. Stu has the look of someone who would dance to the Macarena unironically. I shouldn't be laughing.
All right. So for our listeners, this was scripted at 7:00 this morning. And normally we like to mock each other on the pod, but today's gone up a level and I've got nothing left to talk about. So let's move on to a world where we're no longer oblivious to the fact that the song Semi-Charmed Life by Third Eye Blind is actually about escaping life with crystal meth. Let's get going. Today's guest is Philip Thomas. I first met Phil as he was a drummer in a band called 12 Day Year, one of the first ever bands that I produced a demo for when I started up my own studio back a couple of years ago, maybe a little bit more. I remember turning up at his house actually with my little Pro Tools rig at the time, and then I ended up setting up in his front room with a drum kit, and from there a blossoming bromance between him and the rest of the band and myself was born. Phil's gone on to be in some great bands, so we wanted to bring him on to hear more about those, but not only about the highs and lows of that musical journey, but also ridicule him for that fringe he used to have all those years ago. So, Phil, thanks for joining the pod, mate.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me on. I've been really looking forward to this.
Good, awesome. So first question, we like to get nice and nostalgic from the start. Can you remember your favourite ever band t-shirt or hoodie as a kid, like a piece of merch or something that you really remember?
Mate, I was one of those weird kids that never bought band merch because I couldn't afford it.
Oh, nice.
And like when I was that age and I would get a bit of money, I would just blow it on PlayStation games rather than buying band merch. And it really annoys me now that I've been a musician for a number of years and I've got my own, technically, my own merch line on the internet and no one's buying it. I'm like, dude, I totally get it.
Yeah, nice.
Actually, no, tell a lie. One time I went to see a band called Every Time I Die. I think it was like Taste of Chaos or something.
Amazing.
And my friend and I, we decided to queue up for the artist meet and greet. So we queued up. We ended up being the last ones in the line before they told everyone else behind us to go. And so we got to the front of the queue. We met the entire band, shook their hands, got to meet them, ended up getting a signed poster from all of them. And I felt really bad because they were right next to their merch stall and I felt obligated to buy some of their merch because I was the last one in the queue and they would just watch me. So I ended up blowing 60 quid on an Every Time I Die hoodie.
Amazing. So good. I actually had one. I had a Every Time I Die t-shirt when I went to Florida, and I knew one song and I can't remember what it was called. Is it Bored Stiff where he says, "Hey girls, I'm a cunt"? Is that it?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah,
brilliant band though. They were bloody amazing live.
Tell us about how your musical journey started. How did you start getting into music, man?
Mate, so I was working at Sainsbury's way back in the day, as a lot of people would, working in retail, 16, 17 years old.
Absolutely.
And one of the girls I was working with said, "Hey, my boyfriend's in a band. They need a drummer. Heard you're a drummer." I was really young. I was really up for it. I just wanted to be in a band. I'd never been in a band before. So I went to the local rehearsal studios, and you guys probably know Farm Factory Studios. You've probably heard it.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, probably through you guys, yeah.
Yeah, classic rehearsal studio, still going, still frequent there. Know the guys by first name.
Was it 25 years
Oh, God,
ago?
yeah.
Same carpeted walls, yeah.
Yeah, slightly damp BO, constantly lingering in the air. Yeah. So I went to this band practice and I met two of what would eventually become really close best friends. And we started this band called 9012, named because we would always rehearse from 9 till 12.
I like
So
that.
just mix it up with the 90 instead of 99.
Exactly.
Right, cool.
So
Sweet.
we called ourselves 9012. We never gigged, not even a single one. It was just me, the guitarist, and the bassist. And we just kind of rehearsed and wrote, but never recorded anything, never put anything out there. And then it was a couple of years later that I was hanging out at the pub. One of my mutual friends came up to me. You might remember him, Andy, from 12 Day Year.
Yeah.
He got offered a gig, didn't have a band, didn't have a set. It was 12 days from that point that he accepted the gig. And so we had to put together a band. So I got hired as the drummer. We ended up drafting one of our friends as the bassist. And within 12 days, we wrote a 4-song set and learnt 2 covers, which is why we then named ourselves 12 Day Year, because we did more work in 12 days than we'd ever done in a whole year of being in a band. And that still stands true to this day. I've never been more productive being in a band than I was during those first 12 days.
So what genre did 12 Day Year play?
So we've got a lot of influences, but I think the genre that we settled on was just hard rock. A lot of our influences were bands like Funeral for a Friend, a bit of Foo Fighters, classic kind of guitar in there. We did have a huge list of influences, and I can't remember what any of them are. I'm pretty certain in our press pack, I added Britney Spears as one of our official influences.
That is
as a
rebellious, mate. I don't know
Yeah,
how you
exactly.
guys lived so close to the edge.
Yeah. But yeah, it was just hard rock, really. We didn't have any screaming, just had lots of distorted guitars, some drum beats that focused way too much on a crash and ride cymbal. I did manage to convince Stu to hide a sub drop in one of our songs, though. I think, if I remember correctly, without the rest of the band knowing.
Why would we have
A secret sub drop is my favorite. So I saw a picture of your kit that you shared with us earlier, and I saw that you've got some electric pads. I don't know if that was recent or that was back in the day, but you had some electronic pads, and now it all becomes clear. I'm assuming one of those pads just had the sub drop on it.
No, so funnily enough, none of those pads had a sub drop. It was our bassist's electronic kit.
Yeah.
He brought it around my house one day and just forgot to pick it up for 3 years, so I just had it around. I couldn't afford a China cymbal, so I would just set up these pads around my drum kit so that one of the pads was just a China sample that played every time I hit it. Like, it was just...
But like what? So you had a PA system for the pads alongside your kit. What?
It didn't work in the way that you would expect it to. I would basically wear headphones and only I could hear the China.
Fucking hell, what was the point? That's so weird, mate.
There was this drummer on YouTube called Cobus, really, really big in like the early 2000s. And he started releasing this series of drum covers where he called it the hybrid kit era. And he did the exact same thing. And I was basically just ripping off his idea, but I just couldn't get the execution right.
Wow.
It sounds like you got it very right for yourself, just not for the audience.
One man experience.
You were buzzing for it, hearing that China in your headphones.
That's what makes the difference.
Yeah, exactly.
If it sounds good in your own head.
Guys, what do you think of the China? Can't hear it, mate. Fucking, it's in your headphones.
Well, I'm telling you, it's great.
Yes.
All they're getting is just a really obnoxiously loud donk, donk, donk.
I was going to say, so at that point, did you suss that actually music's for me? I'm ready for it. I want to make a career out of this.
I think the same goes for anyone that's in a band when they're in their like late teens, early 20s. You've always got this kind of idea in your head of, I'd love to make it big. I'd love to be going on stage at Wembley Arena. That's the dream. You push for it, but you don't really ever realize how much work it takes to get there. And I think, I can't really speak for the rest of the band, but I always thought that it was just a case of like, you just write good music and there's going to be like a record label guy at some local gig that's waiting to sign you.
Yeah, some geezer at the back in his Hawaiian shirt, sunglasses on, with a notepad in his hand.
That was me, actually, yeah.
Yeah. So as I grow older, I kind of realized I was basically living like this musical American dream of if you're good enough and you're right place, right time, it'll happen. Looking back at it, I realized it's just so much work. You've really, really got to grind at it.
So
yeah.
Reining it back a little bit. So your first band was after school, was it, or before?
That was after school. I think I was like 16, 17 when I was in that band.
Were you in college with that band that you started playing gigs with?
No. I went to college in Watford studying motorsports engineering, and none of my classmates were musicians.
Okay. Amazing. No, so I was just curious if you felt like when you started getting into bands and stuff, it certainly for me, it felt like it gave me a bit of belonging, found my space and helped me to like make new friends and actually even just make girls know that I even existed possibly. Do you think
No,
that
I totally
helped
agree.
with you at all? Or?
I totally agree. I still stay in contact very much with the bassist of that band. And then all of the lads in 12 Day Year, throughout all of the iterations of the band, and there's been maybe 4 iterations with various lineup changes,
Yep.
they're still my best friends. So I totally agree. Once you find that musical family, it does change your life. It sticks with you.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy. Like they're the best guys. If they're probably going to be listening, so shout out to all of my 12 Day Year guys. Love you.
Yeah, that was gay. All right. So
I had to. I'm the soppy one of the group. It's fine.
There's always one. Stu wasn't that one.
No, I am deep down just to cover it up with a bunch of testosterone fueled mocking.
I just wanted to immediately get onto the hair. That's my thing. Obviously, I've got a shaved head now. I've gone through many different styles, and that was the thing that stood out for me in those photos. Your hair looks very different now than it did then. And for the people watching, this is not a jive at you. You just had a very long fringe, and it reminded me of me and every other teen boy at that era. So,
yeah, everyone in this room right now had an emo fringe, like Stu included.
Correct.
Yours wasn't quite as emo and majestic as mine, but yours still.
I had blonde in the middle.
yeah,
which was
you did.
fucking shit in the first place, but worse because I have a really bad cow's lick, so it just split into curtains frequently. So it's just never ever good.
You were going for emo, but you were coming out with David Beckham.
I mean,
I mean, that's a good comparison, isn't it? There's many more people that you could have picked. H from Steps. That was the kind of aesthetic you were giving off.
Jedward was
Yeah,
strong.
Jedward.
In fact, right now it's a strong Jedward going on right now. Tell us about the fringe. Sorry, I stole your thunder.
Mate, I was like every emo kid from that era. I just want the longest, straightest fringe that you could possibly get. I probably owned about 4 pairs of GHDs. Each of them broke eventually.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was the thing back then, though. It was seen, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, if you didn't have a massive fringe, if you weren't wearing skinny jeans, I should point out that I still rock skinny jeans to this day, and I'm never going to grow out of that. I've heard that they're not cool anymore. I've heard that the kids wear baggy jeans again. I love my skinnies. I'm never going back.
Too.
But yeah, I loved that emo fringe. It was really bloody annoying to look after. And I've got the waviest hair, so the moment I get any sort of moisture in my hair, it just turns into this weird afro. Eventually, I just got so bored of trying to look after it that I just decided to grow it out.
Yeah.
So now I've got the modern equivalent of an emo fringe, which is a man bun.
Nice.
Suits you, mate. Suits you.
Zlatan. So tell us about let's hear about some of these gigs then. I'm sure there's some highs and some lows. Give us some of the lows, mate.
Honestly, there's not a lot of lows. I can't look back at any gig and think, oh, that was shit. That was rubbish. Like, even the shows where there were 2 people in the audience, we still just... It fired us up. Like, we were just like, well, there's no one in this room. Let's fucking go wild. Let's really fucking play. And we would just ham it up and just treat it like a free practice. So even though there's no one in the crowd, we still loved it.
Is that quite a regular occurrence, was it?
Oh, depressingly so, yes. We did manage to get some shows in London. We played this venue called Babalu in Brixton, and it was underneath a church. So the gig venue was a crypt, and it was a brilliant night. I can't remember much about it. I think we were supporting some bigger band. We even managed to do some PR on the street, just like grab some random European couple that were on holiday in London. We convinced them to buy tickets and go watch our band.
Their holiday.
Yeah, that was always the way. See if you can get some stragglers in.
Oh, mate, it was just so much fun. We'd never played London before that. The thing I remember about that gig is I think we borrowed a van, and it only had 2 seats. So half of the band was just illegally chilling out in the back of the van. It was a proper Ford Transit.
Sure.
Absolutely freezing. Things rolling everywhere, pitch black, and we're all just in the back of the van, just waiting to get the drive done back to Hertfordshire.
That experience is a bit too close to home for me, because we had it where we'd cut a little hatch into the back of a Vivaro, and it was freezing. So they'd put the heat on right at the front and had it on max, and they were all complaining it was too hot, sat in their t-shirts and shorts, like it's boiling. And we're literally like with duvets, jackets zipped up. absolutely freezing. Like you could see our breath. It was, oh, Jesus. That kind of triggered me when you said that.
Was it with transit vans as well? Like we had one in Siren Lake and it was just a yellow rust bucket. And honestly, I just money. I remember like we put curtains in it. Why are you putting curtains in a van? Just look,
So you can
and painting
sleep in it.
blue inside. It looks so bad.
I think it's
waste of money. So getting a little bit more like professional now and going into your actual current band. So tell us more about that.
So
Or
yeah,
bands,
I mean,
sorry.
yeah, I mean, two bands. The main one is actually the covers band at the moment because I've realised in my old age that it's far easier to make money playing music if you're playing bangers that someone else wrote 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
Because that's the stuff people want to sing along to and dance to. So most weeks I play with my covers band Total Recall. We've got a full IEM set up, and ever since we got them, absolutely changed our lives. The singer doesn't have to scream just to hear himself. And because we all do backing vocals as well, absolute game changer. It's so good. But I've also got Artisans, which is our current project, but we're still doing it sparingly. I think we practice maybe twice a year at this point because we're all getting a bit busy with life at the moment.
2 day year. Yeah. How are, because that's with, sorry, dad joke. So that's Chew as well, is that?
Yeah, Alex Chu, he's vocalist in both of those bands, actually.
Okay.
So I can't escape the guy. It doesn't matter how hard I try. Chu is always going to be there singing with me.
Bloody legend, that guy.
He's all right though.
Yeah. What was your first recording experience like?
It was with Stu.
That was your first experience?
Yeah, that was my studio cherry.
Wow.
Yeah, I loved it.
So yeah, right. Just be careful what you say now. He's right there.
Yeah, it's my pod, mate. Don't fucking mug me off.
I think we recorded all day at my mum's house because she was like, do you and your friends want pizza? And she ordered us like Domino's and we just like chilled out in the garden.
Now I remember that. Yeah. Good. Fucking hell, that was a bloody turn up for the books, wasn't it?
That was a fun day. I enjoyed that. My neighbours probably fucking hated me.
But that must have been a bit of a hard sell because was it you that came across my crap MySpace page, or was it like, well, to say to the rest of the guys, right, I found this guy who thinks he can do demos, but he's got to come and record at my house. And the guys are like, really? Is that legit? Is that a thing?
Nah, they were well up for it. You were the only guy that wasn't charging £900 a song.
Yeah, that'll do.
It was more of a budget thing, but obviously you'd worked with Chu's band City Divided before, and we heard those singles. We were like, yeah, this is sick. It's good. So we were pretty excited to get in touch with you.
Cool.
And then just spending all of that time doing the vocals, throwing in random woos into tracks.
It's a Stu thing.
That was a thing, wasn't it? Gang vocals at the time was a real thing. Everyone fucking bummed that. And it was always the last thing we did. So after the energy had just gone completely.
Yep. Well, we tried to rip off Fight Star because Charlie would always do that kind of woo before the big section. So our singer did the exact same thing leading into our breakdown. But yeah, it was a good experience, man. I look back at that and I genuinely loved it.
I think that's the common
I wish
theme.
I had more studio time.
I think that's the main theme. Whenever we ask people about who's recorded with Stu, they always speak so highly of him, and I'm always having to go, hang on, the same Stu that I know. But we still laugh about some of our old recordings as well, even to this day.
I think I remember, like, it's so long ago. And obviously there's a lot of different bands, but there was always one person in every band who, like, and Dan, you'll be able to attain to this as well. There's always one person you just don't connect with.
Yeah.
And they're always a bit awkward, and you're recording their bit and you don't know whether to push them because they're not quite doing it properly or it's off or whatever. And you're like, I could push this, but like for the dynamic of this day or this group or this song, I'm just gonna...
I'll quantize this later, yeah.
Yeah, I'll fix this later. That'll be it. And everyone will go like, oh, that was a good session. And then probably the bassist probably be like, he's a bit of a dick though, isn't he? And but yeah, then there'd be, and it was always... there's always one person out of a band that you'd always connect with more as well, and it wasn't the person that you expected to be as well.
Absolutely. It's hard to get that dynamic right, especially if they're a group of really close friends that can be themselves, and it does get tough to know.
Yeah,
I think that's why it was so easy recording with you, Stu, because you just became like one of the lads. You so easily became just part of the banter, the dynamic between the different band members. It was just so easy for you to slot in and just join in with the jokes.
It's very sweet of you, mate. That's very nice of you to say.
Don't get me wrong. We used to say things about you as well.
Undoubtedly, yeah. About my highlights, probably. Anyway, so tell us on the sort of theme of recording and studio and gear and stuff. What as a drummer, then what was your first drum kit? Tell us about that.
So my first drum kit was a Yamaha Stage Custom. It was way too expensive for a beginner drummer to have, but bless my mum, she knew I wanted to be a drummer, and she really pulled out all the stops to try and support me.
Love that.
I gigged with that once with 12 Day Year, and I'm fairly certain we recorded the Innovation is Key EP. It's the most pretentious EP title. I'm fairly certain I came up with it, which is extra cringe. I upgraded to a Tama Hyperdrive kit, which I loved. Gigged with that a few times. Never really did anything with it. Ended up selling it when I moved house. And now I exclusively gig on a £200 Mapex kit because I don't want an expensive drum kit, because I want something that's cheap and shitty that I can just chuck into the back of a van and not give a shit about. I don't care about it. It's scratched up, it's dinged. If anything, it gives it more character.
Especially if you're doing covers, like you finish really late, don't you? Like when you do covers gigs, you're playing to like pubs and clubs and stuff where you're finishing at midnight and you just want to get home. You don't want to have to be packed. And also, if you remember back in the days of playing originals, sometimes you might be second on and you just turn up and you bring your sticks and your cymbals and you're good to go.
Yep. I bought this drum kit from a dude up in Loughborough, and I get there, turns out he was a really nice guy. He used to be, I think, the tour manager for Bullet for My Valentine and Lost Prophets.
One out of two ain't bad, is it?
Right. He was the tour manager on the tour that Ian Watkins was arrested during.
I'll tell you what, like I cut it out every single time, and I swear to God, at least 12 of them, 12-day year of them, include Ian Watkins in the chat, because Lost Prophets was so pivotal for like everyone. And then everyone's just like, for fuck's sake, like, why have you ruined that for all of us?
Start Something was one of the best fucking albums of the early 2000s, and it depresses me that it's just so difficult to listen to now.
Both of those first two for very different reasons as well. Like the Start Something, the production is just a joke. Like it's just so spot on for me. And then the first one was like raw and just fucking different, and you had the decks going mad. It was just wicked. But hey, fucking what a prick. But yeah, funny how it just literally comes up all the time. Yeah, so how'd you get into singing then? Like, so obviously you started out on the kit, and then how did you get into singing?
So I was around 21, 22. I really wanted to sing, but I was just fucking scared to. And I'm sure you guys probably understand, the first time you're singing to a crowd, it's the scariest shit you can do. And I made a New Year's resolution to myself that I was going to play a gig. I was going to sing in front of people. So I can't remember who it was. It was either Ryan or Andy from 12 Day Year to play acoustic guitar with me. And we just played an acoustic set up at the Green Room. And I sang. And I've still got some of those recordings on my SoundCloud all these years later. As shit as they are, like I made a lot of mistakes, but there's something sentimental about having like video footage of your first ever gig where you sang.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
It's funny that you mentioned like being scared of singing like on stage in front of an audience, because for me, I genuinely found that was the easier part. It was singing in front of your friends or singing in front of like small groups where you are really kind of exposed. Whereas in a room full of people, they expect that you might just be crap and they just accept it. And they're like, well, it's only cost me £3 for a ticket. It's the Green Room. I'm only here for the beers. Like,
they're totally right, because that's exactly right. Whenever you play in shows to many more people, from 5 to 10, and they're all like a room full of strangers, whatever. But when some of your best mates who are just not musically inclined in any shape or form and know you turn up, and then you're like, right, I've got to put on this persona.
Yeah.
Which I always felt like it's not natural, and that was half of the reason why I was like, I need to stop. This is done. But yeah, because they look at you and go, "What are you doing, mate? That's not you. You go and watch football on a Saturday. Well, that's not.
I didn't realise you could sing. You should be on X Factor." Okay,
and so you're always getting over that. Yeah, that fucking line. Jesus, that's
I
such
think
a
for
thing
me-
with family, wasn't it? As well, it was always like, yeah, oh, you do music, you should do the X Factor thing. Like, why don't you fuck off? Like,
I did the X Factor thing.
No.
did you? No,
I know,
when they said
it wasn't-
embarrassing stories, here we go. Let's go.
It wasn't X Factor. It was The Voice. So
Okay, even worse. Carry on.
they on the application form they have a question that's like, give us an example of something that you've had to overcome to pursue your passion for music, and it's basically just what's your fucking sob story. Sadder the better. Write
Absolutely.
it down.
Erectile
And-
dysfunction. Carry on.
I should have put that. I was just like, I ain't got shit. I
The
had a good
worst
life.
thing is, if they did pick you up on that, you have to go on live TV and cry about it and say, yeah. So I'm here. I've had a rough couple of years, and they say, well, what's up? What's been going on with your family? You know,
Fuck's fine when I'm by myself, but when I'm by myself, when I'm with her, it's just not the same.
works when I'm by myself.
Tone's been lowered desperately.
Okay,
Jesus.
let's bring it back in.
So-
The Voice.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went to the pre-television auditions, which was at like the Hilton Wembley, and they ferry you in by a group of 40, and you just sit in the waiting room. They give you a number and they call you up 10 at a time. You go up to one of the rooms. It's literally just a hotel room that's been stripped. It's just, there's no furniture in there apart from these like cheap plastic chairs, and you all have to sit in a semicircle. And you have to sing your first song completely a cappella in front of the other 9 applicants and a panel of 4 judges.
Okay. Wow.
And that's the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. I swear to God, I was having a panic attack.
What did you sing? I must know.
I sang Iris by the Goo Goo Dolls.
Did you think
okay.
it was a strong
It's-
choice?
It suits my voice.
Cool.
It's like my party trick song to this day. I got through to the next round where you had to sing to a backing track. I can't remember the song I chose with a backing track, but it was absolutely shit. It was like some Flux Pavilion song or some bullshit. And they were like, yeah, no, we don't want you to see you later. But I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, a lot like completely different pressure, man. So as a final sort of parting shot to our listeners, what would you say is the one piece of advice you'd give to a young Philip about being in a band?
I would have just told him to enjoy it. Just savor
Absolutely.
every second of every gig, every practice, because eventually you're going to get old and you're going to be too old. You're going to have band members with kids. You're going to have a full-time job, and you won't be able to dedicate as much time to doing that thing you enjoy. So enjoy it while you can, while you're still young.
Totally right, man.
So it's time now for the My Napster section, a section where we ask our guests to look back and give us a song that throws them right back to the days of being a cringy youth with aspirations in their top pocket. So I'm thinking the sort of song you spent days downloading only to find out it was the wrong one. So Phil, what track takes you back to your long-fringed youth?
It's a bit of a meta answer because the song itself is about being in a band in the early 2000s. It's my favorite band of all time. I miss them. The song is Freddy Krueger by a band called Ruben.
Oh wow.
I really, really miss this band. I never got to see them. The only time I ever got to see them live was whilst I was queuing up at Download Festival and they were opening up the main stage. And I didn't know who they were at that time, but like a month later, I fell in love with them and I couldn't stop listening to their first album, Race Car Backwards. And that album inspired me to step up my drumming. Guy Davis, fantastic drummer. But yeah, I'm glad to see that Jamie Lenman's still doing stuff though.
Nice. You know, I haven't heard the name Ruben for years, man. I never really got into him, but like the name, yeah, as I say, I remember them kicking around a load at that time. And did you buy that on a CD? Or was it MP3 at the time? What do you remember?
That was an illegally downloaded album from
you bastard.
LimeWire. Hey, it's
Nice.
fitting,
It's people
right?
like you. People like you.
You're the downfall of the music industry, Phil.
No, I'm fairly certain I did buy that CD at some point, and I wish I
Don't
still
lie,
had it.
mate. They're not listening. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Do you remember listening to that with anyone in particular, anyone in the bands and stuff? Well, how does that correlate to the whole being in a band thing at the time?
So the bassist of my first ever band, 9012, his best friend is a guy called Biff, and Biff became the bassist of 12 Day Year. So we're all part of this kind of mixed circle of friends. And Lee, Biff, and I decided to try and become a Ruben tribute act whilst Ruben was still a band. So we would just spend hours and hours and hours in my mum's living room playing Ruben songs, stupidly loud, with zero care for how the neighbors felt. But anything by Ruben will just immediately bring me back to those days of just playing music in a living room in your mum's house, which in the grand scheme of things is probably the glory days, isn't it?
Yeah, we used to
Yeah.
practice in a loft of all places. So I can definitely relate. And there's no chance in hell I can imagine myself rehearsing in a loft again. Even I'm in touch with
No.
the same guys, and even just putting the idea to them, guys, I've got a loft actually. Do you want to rehearse? Just like the old days. You think any of them are going to be like, do you know what? That sounds great.
Well, it's also because you're at that age where you go, like, I don't think these neighbours really need to listen to us practicing in a loft. But or it's now your loft. It's like, well, I don't want these dickheads in my loft, like you say. I'm not having it. Oh man, nice, good. I really appreciate bringing back Ruben to the table, man. Like, it's a throwback for sure. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on the pod, man. I really appreciate it, and hope you've had a good trip down memory lane.
I have. Thank you so much for having me, guys.